I really wished I could attend this event in person, but right now I'm taking a qualifying exam for the International Math Olympiad half a world away. It was a very difficult decision, choosing between this wonderful TT100 event and my exam. But then I came up with a resolution to this situation, because I always come up with a solution for everything, right? My resolution this time was that I could still attend this event virtually. So here I am. Now, before I begin, I would like to tell you a little bit of an anecdote that relates to what I will be talking about at the opening of this event. So, this story is set all the way back in 2015. Now, 2015 is very long ago. I used to think it was only 5 years ago, but now it's 7. Wow. I was only 3 years old and my father was still a math student. So he owned a calculus book, and every time I would go into his room and try to touch it, he took me out of the room and gave me my little toy cars and my toy buses and cold wheels or whatever. However, one day, my father was away from home, and in the first time in 6 months, he didn't take his calculus book with him. Dun-dun-dun! I jumped on the opportunity and took the calculus book, opening it up, and I saw a jungle of wonderful mystical symbols and equations everywhere. Now, obviously, I didn't understand it. Still a little 3-year-old. The most advanced concept I had heard was exponents. I didn't know nothing about calculus. However, I was still so fascinated by it that I tried to transcribe it all on my blackboard. However, those tiny little 3-year-old arms couldn't do much work, so I couldn't carry the book. However, unlike any rational 3-year-old would do, I did not ask for help, and instead, I ripped out some of the pages of the book, brute force, and then I just wrote them down on the blackboard. I then just tucked them in and hoped my dad wouldn't notice. Then, that night when he came home, he saw the pages of his calculus book in shambles and pieces. His first suspect was refund. He was pretty disorganized anyway, I'm so sorry. But when he found out it was me, instead of getting angry at me, he cried tears of joy, seeing that I was so curious about mathematics. From that day on, he helped me learn calculus, even though I was only 3 and I knew arithmetic. By the time I was 5, I had mastered most of calculus, a subject that was taught to people who were, at the time, 10 or 11 years older than me. That's a wow. So, now I am 10 and I'm taking an advanced placement calculus course in Malvern High School. This proves that learning and age, they're not in the same equation. They don't coincide. Every person learns at their own pace, but when we use a school system that categorizes people by age, not taking into account that people learn at different paces, some kids are bound to be left behind, and some kids are bound to be pushed back by the barriers of the grade system. Before I get into the problems of our educators, I'm going to get into the problems that I just addressed with the education system itself. Our education system follows a system similar to Piaget's theory that suggests that kids learn and develop by age. For example, the stages of development, according to Piaget, are 0 to 2, sensory motor, 2 to 7, pre-operational, 7 to 11, operational, and 11 beyond. Come on, I can't remember more than 3 names now, can I? Vygotsky talk. 4, all of the things that you can do, and all of the things that you can do with the help of someone else. Like a more knowledgeable other. What is a more knowledgeable other? Well, Vygotsky talk. 4, teacher. So, a zone of proximal development does not grow with time. Well, of course it does grow with time, but it grows at different rates, which is not addressed by the school system. So, let's get into the more fundamental problems, the problems with our teachers. A lot of teachers don't really care about their students' self-esteem. Students have emotions too, you know? So, when students' self-esteem is lowered, perhaps like when they get a bad grade, some kids really care about those numbers they get on their papers, and they should care because that's what helps you get into good colleges and universities, which is how you get good education. If grades are lowered, a kid's self-esteem can be lowered too, which seriously damages their mental health and also puts them in a deflated situation, a situation where they feel sad and demotivated to actually try in the class that they have a lowered grade. If they don't try, then their grades fall even more, and the cycle continues until not only are their grades broken, but their mental health is broken too. So, we want to prevent that kind of negative cycle, because not only does it inhibit education, it seriously hurts the feelings of some people. So, that's why I believe our teachers should be able to motivate our students. Our teachers should be able to give the students the kick they need to start learning. Not only do we need to make our kids learn, we need to make our kids curious to learn. Curiosity is a main point of this speech as well. So, let me give you an example. The example of late educator Miss Rita Pearson. Miss Pearson was once asked to teach an uncooperative elementary class. So, one day, she handed out a spelling quiz. And almost impressively, one kid got 18 out of 20 questions wrong. But instead of putting minus 18, 10%, 2 out of 20 on their paper, she put a plus 2 and a smiley face. Now, then the student came up to her and said, "Why the plus 2 and why the smiley face? I got 18 wrong." And she said, "Yeah, you did. You did get 18 wrong. But you got 2 right. So it ain't all bad. Won't you do better when we review?" "Yes, ma'am," the student said. And then Miss Pearson, when they would go out into the hallway, she made a big speech. She would always say, "Don't make any sound in the hallway. We are the role model for the other classes. We gotta show them how to do it." She said, "You are the best class. We are the best class. You are the best students. I am the best teacher. We were all put together for a reason." I believe that this shows the need for motivation when it comes to students. But there's also one other need that our educators and our education system has to address. And that need is the need to have imaginative teachers. Now, let me visualize this for you with a teacher named Mr. I Can't Imagine. So, Mr. Timagin is teaching physics, and one day, a student finds a mistake in his method. And Mr. Timagin, being the old little boomer with that iconic white beard on his face, he says, You, I've been doing this problem for 100 years. I've been doing it longer than you've been alive. So you have no right to say that I am doing it wrong." So he deducts points from the student for speaking up about unnecessary matters in class. Then, the next day, another student, he's teaching the same goddamn thing. And another student finds an insight in his method, a way to make it quicker. However, since Mr. Timagin had never seen that proof before, he's like, "You're wrong. And when the student uses it on a test, then the points are deducted because even though he got the correct answer, he had the wrong work. And then, a few weeks later, he gives everyone a project to simulate gravity using code. So most students do it exactly the way he taught, but a few students do it a different way, a way that uses a completely new method. However, since Mr. I Can't Imagine had never seen it before because he can't imagine, he deducts points. Wow, who could have imagined that? I think this can be best summarized by Sir Ken Robinson's joke. Sir Ken Robinson was also a fellow educator as well. Imagine. So, he imagines, wow, that's a lot of imagining. He imagines an imaginary classroom where the teacher asks everyone to draw anything they can imagine. So, a little girl who's usually slacking off in the back of the class is fully imagining. She's hyper-focused on her drawing. So the teacher can't imagine what that little girl back there is drawing to be so hyper-focused. So he walks over to her in this little goofy fashion and says, "What's she drawing?" And the girl says, "God, just God." And the teacher says, "But we don't know what God looks like." And the little girl says, "Yeah, sure we don't. But in a minute, we will." It didn't fall within the boundaries of the teacher's fixed mindset. He rejected it. Now, I would like to thank Dr. Ben Anderson for helping me come to this realization. And I would also like to thank everyone who has helped me along the way in my endeavors in South Africa, including Mr. Vusi, Dr. Mabunda, Mrs. Mabunda, Trisan, Dr. Marla, Dr. Klopper, Mrs. Susi, and everyone else attending the TT100 event. Thank you, and this time I didn't make it to South Africa, but next time I will. See you soon.